All right, welcome back. We are discussing the four main areas of advice that I have for becoming wise guides to youth and helping them explore. We've already covered recognizing irrelevance, knowing what not to pay much attention to, and getting ahead of your youth so that you can offer them new experiences of exploration that they wouldn't have been able to come up with for themselves. The next general sphere of advice is that you should become people who are devoted to finding excellence. So not just avoiding irrelevance, but going out and actually looking for really awesome stuff and being able to pull it out at any given time to offer to your students. If you want to have a lasting influence throughout your transition into adulthood, you want to be giving them things that are likely to stay good in their estimation for the rest of their adulthood, for a very long time. Now, there's a few mistakes that people can make as they're trying to be people who care about excellence a lot that I want to just get out of the way for you. And the first one that I want to emphasize, I care about really passionately, and it's that the amount of money spent on something has effectively no correlation to how excellent something is. I'm not asking you guys to become like economic snobs or to become interested in expensive things. Most of the excellence out there in the world has nothing to do with expense. If you think about a lot of the most valuable cultural artifacts in our society, like say, I don't know, bluegrass music or jazz, these are being produced in sections of society that were not financially well off and actually received a lot of pushback from the established economic and art forces of their time. But some people think that when I'm calling them to pursue excellence, to find excellence everywhere, they think that I'm asking you to become a snob. And in fact, while some excellent things are expensive to produce or recognized as so excellent that rich people pile on top of one another and pay increasingly more money in order to have ownership of it, as if ownership was the thing you wanted to do with excellent things. Could you imagine trying to own a priceless work of art? Like, I don't know. There's something just sets uneasily with me if that becomes your obsession. And I love art. But it doesn't take a rich person to love a great painting. In fact, the people who are part of the art market rat race are in some ways the worst people for engaging with excellent things in terms of the excellence. It just turns into dollar signs, you know? So don't think about the money. Similarly, we've talked about this a couple times, the Christian music industry, the Christian film industry, if you trace the money, it's not an attractive situation. Like, the money being poured into Christian artifacts is not necessarily, and the distribution channels that new Christian artifacts are able to have is not necessarily a good way to find excellent Christian artifacts. Money isn't a correlation to excellence. A big marketing budget can sell just about anything. All right, in order to find excellence, go to the source. So when you find one thing that's excellent, what you found is an excellence maker in addition to an excellent thing. Not every person who makes an excellent thing will always make excellent things, but the fact that they're able to means that there's someone that you can learn from if you're trying to figure out what makes stuff excellent over time. So if there's one thing that's excellent, go to the source. How did this get made? Who was caring about it? Who thought of it in the first place? What else have they made? What inspired them? What's going on? And the more you do that, the more you create like choose your own adventure of awesome exploration through culture that you wouldn't have found otherwise. If you're relying on like the stuff that's getting buzz in the news, that's going to be much less reliable in terms of finding excellence than if you find something that's truly excellent and go to the person who made it and try to figure out what influenced them and what else they've done. Next, focus on history rather than current hysteria, rather than current enthusiasm. So it's actually pretty hard to predict from a moment in history which things that have been made by your culture at that time will be valued for a long time afterward. But once you've gotten like 100 years away from a period of time when people were making stuff, you might have lost some legitimately high quality things. We might not know about the best novel that was written in the 16th century, or I guess they weren't writing novels then, the best play that was written in the 16th century. We might not know about it. It might have been lost to history. But the things that have survived till now from the 16th century, the reason they survived has to be that they're awesome. Like if people care about them and they're still reading them and it's taken that long, if you don't like it, you're wrong. Like it's just more awesome than you realize. So if you go to historical artifacts that have been proved through the test of time, they're a great way to teach you how to recognize excellence in other places. Because you just don't survive for 600 years being cared about and having entire university systems thinking about you hard for a long time without it being meaningfully excellent. Again, if you have beef with Shakespeare, it's your problem, it's not Shakespeare's at this point, including Tolstoy, based on conversation earlier. So you can rely on history as a source for awesome stuff that will then help you make better guesses about whether the stuff that's being produced right now is awesome or not, is excellent or not. I sometimes am reassured to realize that there were just about as many bad novels being written in the Victorian period as there are bad novels being written right now. We're always making stupid stuff as humans, but some things stand the test of time. So it's worth focusing on history, knowing a bunch of old stuff that's high quality enough, and then having knowing it well enough that you know how to help a youth get excited about it for the first time. If you're the person who gives a high schooler Dante, like you have won. All right, follow love is another way to learn how to recognize excellence. This is another way of saying like trust real artists. Like if you are yourself a real artist, if you love drawing because drawing, not to make money, not whatever. People who love things try to do best by them, you know? So if you have a student that really loves something, follow their love as a guide to find excellence, because you can count on them not just trying to show off or perform for someone else. It's legit. Likewise, if someone has devoted their life in spite of adversity or in spite of poverty to making a certain kind of beautiful thing, then you can probably trust them to know better than you what's excellent about those things. Love is one of the best, it's more associated with excellence than just about any other quality. So those are some simple pieces of advice for how to find excellent stuff that you haven't found before so that you can hand out incredibly rich and life-changing and wonderful things to the students who come up after you. And then the last general area of advice that I have for you as you're trying to be a wise guide to students as they engage culture directly is that it's important for you to, as a discipline, invite youth to go past you. Invite youth onward. You need to do a handoff where you are encouraging them to develop the same skills you have and to get ahead of you in various places, where you are not making people who are dependent on you for their cultural engagement, but where you're actually training people to become the next explorers and the next guides for the people who come after them. It isn't enough to gain their trust and offer them lasting things. You need to turn them into wise explorers too. So how do you do this? How do you train them to become the wise explorers after you? It's one thing to give them all this stuff. How do you actually form them into the kind of people who can do this well? The first thing is to be unapologetic and to be hopeful. Let's just shoot straight with students. Like, there is so much embarrassing Christian stuff out there, right? And actually there are there's memes about this. We get made fun of for having worse stuff than the other people. And that wouldn't be the worst thing. It would be fine for Christians in America to have worse stuff than everyone else, you know? There's nothing risked by having worse stuff in terms of salvation. But it's not the case. The caricature isn't true, that Christian culture is characterized by incompetence. I don't know if this is something that you have felt or that you have worried about. I certainly have at various points in my life, because it just seems like all the good stuff is being made by other people. That's just not the case, especially as you look over the globe, and especially as you look over history. The church has produced some of the most astoundingly magnificent things that anyone has ever made. You can be unapologetic about the fruits of Christian excellence and the fruits of Christian artistry, about politicians who have striven to live out their Christianity in the political sphere, about business people, about artists, about writers, about anything. Christ has been transforming people with such a broad variety of gifts and abilities throughout history. And if you know how to look for these things, you don't need to be someone who's like apologizing for a Christianity being embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. We have a cultural inheritance that could rival any faith traditions or ethnic traditions or national traditions. You are the inheritors of this, of the expressions of worship from people through a couple of millennia, doing incredible things. Most of Bach's music is church music. He was his church musician. He wrote tons of his songs to play in church services. And now everyone adores them all over the world. You know, that's yours. Rachmaninoff wrote primarily sacred music and was a worshipful person. So just classical music, you know, you got two of the biggest, heaviest hitters of all time. They're in our camp. And I'm not saying this to make you excited about our camp. I'm just saying, like, don't be embarrassed. You don't need to be embarrassed. You don't need to be apologetic to your youth about, yeah, sorry, we're Christians. Like, people are going to forget about God's Not Dead in a few years, and we're still going to be playing Bach on the new earth. We're okay. Okay? And be fundamentally hopeful. Your students could be the next ones to produce the incredible culture that expresses what it means to live in this broken world in hope of everlasting life. You could. Why not try? God delights in the praises of his people, whatever form those praises take. He has put genius into so many people's minds and hearts. Don't be discouraged by all the distractions of contemporary consumeristic Christianity. Instead, help students see that they're part of a tradition that's grander, more beautiful than they might have feared that they were. Next, in order to invite youth onward, use feats and use fantasy. So feats, by which I mean challenges, things that are too hard for them or that they think are too hard for them. Give them a context to try, to make a film, to write a song, to write a poem, to write a prayer, to design a new game that has never existed, to do all these things. Give them challenges that they don't know if they're going to succeed at, and show them that they're more capable than they know. And give them fantasy. Give them stories that help them get excited about exploring. Give them stories that get them excited about creating. Youth look for stories that they can inhabit. They look for challenges that they can overcome because they're trying to figure out who they're going to be and who they can be. So giving them these like challenges. So a silly example of this would be at another youth group that I was working with. I persuaded them to have a monthly event called the Sad, 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 Sad Movie Night. And the marketing for this event, the like approach to it was like, I challenge you to come see such a sad, 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 sad movie. So the students showed up and they're like, yeah, we're gonna cry, you know, because it was a challenge. And it was felt like weird and interesting. And then it just so happens that if it's a sad, 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 sad movie, it's probably engaging with like the sorts of themes that matter to someone who's becoming an adult, or with themes of faith or whatever, or there's a Christological image in it somewhere or something like that. So it's a great opportunity to give them something that they wouldn't have expected, but because you framed it as a feat, a challenge to overcome and prove to yourself that you are a sad, 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 sad movie watcher. It's a silly example, but using feats and using fantasy, we'll talk about fantasy in a little bit, is a way to help motivate students to keep on pursuing the more excellent thing. The more youth find stories in general that direct them toward Christian hope, the more they'll explore faithfully on their own. So this should, you should be selecting stories that make it more likely for them to keep looking for these stories. Finding the films, the books, the whatever that so clearly articulate that in spite of everything, hope is worth it, that makes it more likely for them to live that way in general. Fairly straightforward point, but I hope you get it. So the more youth faith, if you set a high bar for your students, both in terms of the stories that they consume and the challenges that they face, they will rise to the bar. Like, it's very difficult to put a bar too high for youth because youth are these incredible chameleons of achievement, unless they're bored or unwilling to engage or something like that. But if you earn their trust, and then if you set a high bar for them, almost always they'll rise to it. And if they're not rising to it, it's because there's some significant impediment that's stopping them from acting like a youth. Some trauma, some distrust, something like that. And so you know if they're not rising to the high bar, you know there's something to work on. There's ministry to do. So a high bar that isn't met doesn't mean let's keep moving the bar lower. It's let's find out what it is that's stopping them from being able to go on an adventure with us. So keeping the bar high with feats and with fantasy. These are things that are going to help youth continue moving onward. Next, in order to help them continue moving onward, show your work. I've been giving you tons of advice about how to find awesome stuff, how to ignore irrelevant stuff. Do the same thing with your students. As you're telling them the story of this symphony that you discovered or whatever it is that you're going to share with them, the next a Kendrick Lamar album, whatever it is, as you're telling them the story of this, give them an account of how you encountered it. You're like, oh yeah, I was looking on this thing, and then I read this thing, and that led me to this album, and here are some things that I like about it. And the more you can just sort of seed that into your conversations with students, the more you're going to equip them to follow you in the path that you're taking. Again, this is very concrete, and it sounds a little bit silly, but it's the kind of thing that you're going to do if you're taking seriously the goal to train them into be explorers themselves. Keep showing your work. Keep saying what the process is so that they can follow the same way. Next, be someone who inspires reflection. As they're engaging with culture and it has good fruit or bad fruit, pause sometimes and be like, so, a month ago you were really interested in this film. Do you still care about it as much? Why or why not? Get them to say in their own words, like, yeah, I just don't care about that anymore. Like, oh, that's interesting. Why do you think you don't care about it anymore? Because some things you really care about still. Oh, I don't know. Well, no, seriously, why? So having these conversations to help them begin to process what it is that makes something a treasure to them and what it is that doesn't make something a treasure to them is going to help them make better judgment calls moving forward. And then finally, cast a vision. Youth, by and large, who grow up in the church do not receive a clear vision of how beautiful Christian maturity and Christian adulthood can be. They, by and large, don't have a vision of how following Christ and following the God who made the whole cosmos can give them a different relationship to death that's more beautiful and compelling than any other way of living could be. They generally don't know that growing up in Christ is the best, truest, most beautiful way to human. Keep on casting that vision over and over again. The joy that is set before us. The hope to which we're called. Be people who keep on proclaiming the good news over and over again in ways that help them latch onto it and take the next steps toward becoming more and more like the kind of people that God wants them to be on the new earth. So this is it. These are the areas of advice. This is how to do it. This is a lot of work, and I recognize that. I don't want to minimize it. But it's also work that if you begin to train yourself to do it on a regular basis, gets easier and easier, and that fills your life with awesome. The first time I read Augustine's Confessions, it was blindingly boring and incredibly difficult to me. I didn't like it at all. Now that I've read it, quite a number of times, it's become easy, and it can sit by my bedside as a nice bedtime book to help me calm down before I go to sleep. You know, the more that you explore, the more that you encounter excellence and learn to love it well, the easier it all gets, and the better your rest can be. You can become someone who, instead of needing to scroll or turn on a show to rest, can rest into things that actually give you life and feed your soul. You can replace habits of consumption with habits of creativity. Or you can start consuming things that you're proud of, more proud of than you do right now. As it gets easier for you, and as you do this more, life is just better. And the more things you know how to appreciate and love, the more ways you have to instantly connect with random people who you encounter and have a meaningful exchange and conversation with them. It's just a better way to live than sitting in your current interests and treating them that they're like they're laws of nature and reducing your life more and more to a reality that's curated to the tastes that you checked 10 years ago on social media. Yuck. How about instead you start living a life that's wide open and expects new beauty to reveal itself to you, and new truth and new goodness to make itself available to you? It's so beautiful and so fun. The work is worth it. It pays off in better rest. It pays off in more friends. It pays off in an expanded view of life, and it pays off by letting you begin to live even more now in the way that you're going to continue living on the new earth. So do the work. Read the hard books, watch the weird films, listen to the hard music, ask the hard questions, find a community of friends who will help you do it. Form groups in this room this summer to try to do some of the things that you wouldn't do if it was left to you, but that you think would help you in this way. I'm reading War and Peace right now, but I did it by persuading a bunch of other people to read it at the same time as me, because I knew if I didn't do that, I wasn't going to read it. I'd get partway through, get bored, and stop. But now I have a deadline. You know, work together to form a community of exploration. Share the beautiful things that you find with one another. And if we succeed at this, if we succeed at guiding youth wisely while they transition into adulthood, we will see them become our peers. I knew Gabriel in the back of the room when he was in high school, and I started deploying this kind of strategy on him. And now, he's farther along than me in all sorts of areas. I learn all sorts of new things from him. We're buddies, and we're continuing to grow and expand together. And some of you have experienced this already. Some of you have had students who are now friends and peers. That's going to get even more, and the rewards of that kind of relationship are going to deepen even further as you become good at this and you invite students to discover an adult identity that's characterized by these things. We'll all together be part of a new kind of adulthood. And that's beautiful and thrilling. We'll be ready to grieve together and laugh together. We'll look more like the church should look. So this is worth it. And you know, it's good news. You guys lucked out. Can you believe it? In order to be good ministers in the church to youth, you get to explore awesome stuff. Lucky you. This isn't a professional requirement in the same way for almost anyone else, because nobody else is ministering to people who always need to explore in order to fulfill their stage of life. Lucky you guys. This can be a fun community of ministry. So let's try it. Don't be content with your scrolling. Don't be content with your current consumption habits. Help each other out and become a community here where, as students walk in, they see it as a world-expanding, treasure-finding, adventure-starting place, so that you can form a community of maturity that's ready for the new earth. The end. All right, any closing questions? We've got half an hour and want to spend most of it on breakout groups, but yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask. So I get a lot of questions from parents who are kind of the classic, become a cliche of I just want my kid to like get into trouble, but instead they're at home and they're bored and they're apathetic, and the exploring part of them, like either because they've been overprotected or because I don't know, they're not awake to that desire to explore. So in moments like maybe on a trip when we get them away and we're doing simple but really great stuff, they start to come alive a little bit. But the moment they go home, it's like the life of exploration has been sucked out of them.
Yep.
That's my comment.
Yeah. So the comment question is like, there are so many students we know who, like, when they're at home or when they're in their normal context, they have shut down their capacity or their interest in exploring. They've given themselves over to apathy. They're fundamentally defensive. They're not inclined to seek new things. Maybe it happens when you go away from their normal context, but as soon as they get back home, they just get sucked back into the vortex of non-exploration. So when you see that, you're seeing a really sick youth, a youth with a disease of some kind, a spiritual disease of some kind, or someone who's being currently injured and needing to roll up to defend themselves from injury. I think that a lot of adults are inclined to see these youth and despise them or blame them, but we need to recognize that if they're acting like this, it's because they need help. And they don't always want help, but a lot of the time they do. A lot of the time they want help. They're just waiting for someone to finally see them. So don't despair for any of them. But it's also the case, like, especially if they're in a intentionally or accidentally abusive home environment, and it's really hard to tell, right, which of your students' home environments are abusive. A lot of times when you find out about dramatic unveilings of abuse, all the neighbors say, we would never have guessed. All the church people say, oh my gosh, they're such good people. Like, it's hard to tell. Some kids just need to roll up and put armor on until they're out of the house. And so you want to try to see if you can responsibly help them take the armor off. You know, in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Aslan tearing off the layers of dragon skin from Edmund. I don't know if you catch that reference, but if you do. So it's good to try to help. But also at some point, it might be worthwhile to say, I don't know why this kid has curled up like this as much as they have. I haven't been able to find it, but they're obviously protecting something, protecting themselves from something. So I need to respect that. And while you respect their seeming apathy, like, keep on giving them good things that maybe they'll be able to have whenever it is that they feel capable of uncurling. But by and large, if they aren't too sick or too injured, jumping way far away from where they expect and then offering them something that ties into one of the major adulthood themes is about as good a guess as you can do for anything. Like, a film about death is, you'll get so many youth who seem completely apathetic. You show them a film about death, and because people haven't talked to them about death very much, and because they just experienced a death for the first time, they'll be ready to talk. So thinking about these things, like, what are the topics that children are protected from, but that it's appropriate to share with our students, those are about as good. And then try to go unexpected. Try to make it an unexpected experience for them. That's about as good a formula as any for a good guess at how to help people uncurl. But yeah, the main thing is to remember that they're not a disappointment or something to be despised. They're someone who's hurting. And to see whether you can pray and ask God to help you see the nature of their pain so you can minister to it in a targeted and knowledgeable way. Any other questions? Great. Oh, one more.
I think it's Eustace, not Edmund, right?
Oh, you're right. Eustace, not Edmund. Sorry, YouTube, or wherever these go. There will be so many comments. He said Edmund. All right. So there's a couple of workshops here. One of them is working on thinking hard about avoiding irrelevant things, learning how to recognize irrelevant things. And one of them is about learning how to find excellent things. I feel like this group is small enough that you could be in one group or two groups productively. And I kind of think that we should try one group first.
Yeah.
And the thing that I want to ask you to do is like read through all the prompts in these two sections quickly. Just read through the questions that are being asked as quickly as you can. Actually, how much time do you have?
We got 20 minutes.
Okay, don't read through, everyone read through these two workshops individually as quickly as you can. But then all I want you to do is strategize together about how y'all could use the summer to become better at this as a community. And try to make an action plan, okay? Try to actually come up with some ideas that you could activate. Whether it's a book club or a movie club or a philosophy club, or I just named 3 kinds of clubs. That's a bad range of examples. There's all sorts of things that you could focus on here. One thing that you want to do is try to articulate to one another what your strengths are in this room and what your weaknesses are. Like have an honest conversation about your weaknesses in respect to all of this. And then make a plan to try to capitalize on your strengths and overcome your weaknesses. All right? And I'm going to let Trevor facilitate. But obviously you shouldn't be the one driving the conversation. So go ahead and read through all of these, and when it seems like everyone is done glancing through them, start making a plan together, and then we'll be done in just a few minutes. Thanks, y'all.